Let's talk about the religious perspective of the founders. So the typical narrative goes in public education. I was in public school, and I went to public school for college as well. The typical historians tend to say that the founders were basically deists, that they believed in the clockwork universe maker. He set the universe in motion, and then through natural law discoveries, we came up with all of these wonderful ideas. But the Bible is really sort of a secondary afterthought, that these were all deists. They may have been sort of a root level theist belief system that they believed in, but when it came to the Bible, they didn't take it literally, they didn't take it seriously. What do you make of that characterization of the founders?
Yeah, characterization is the right word, and it's based on the fact that we really don't know them or who they are. We actually reprinted an old 1848 public school textbook that we used for generations. In public schools, we studied all 56 signers of the Declaration. We knew who they were, their names, their character, their sacrifices. We knew their faith, their family. We knew all about them. Today, we know a small handful. I was recently with an academic at Notre Dame, and he jumped me and said, "You overstate the faith of the Founding Fathers. They were largely deists." I said, "Okay, here's the deal. You name a deist, you name what you call a deist Founding Father, and for every one you name, I'll name 5 overt ones that today would probably be considered evangelicals in religious terms. So you name one, I'll name 5. Let's see who runs out first." Well, he got through 3 or 4 and kind of ran out. I'm still going over here on the other side. And the problem is we take the least and we make that into the rule. And the rule is that, for example, the 56 signers of the Declaration, 29 of them graduated from schools that in their day were considered Bible schools or seminaries. Now, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that a deist is going to attend a Bible school or a seminary, a place that trained ministers, and they were largely Christians. So that's their faith. We see it in evidence in their writings, which is why we collect so much. Just an easy one is to take somebody like a John Hancock. This is an original proclamation from John Hancock, and this is for the state of Massachusetts. And by the way, he's calling them to a day of public fasting, humiliation, and prayer, which is fairly serious. That's kind of serious on your faith. But you find throughout that he is very open. As a Christian, he talks about Jesus Christ and Savior, etc. 22 times he called the state of Massachusetts to prayer like this. You find that by the time you get to 1815, there had been 1,400 government-issued calls to prayer in America, largely by Founding Fathers. So if they're deists, why do they have you praying? And why are they calling you to prayer with what might be considered evangelical language? He would alternate oftentimes with Thanksgiving and fasting. This is one of Hancock's Thanksgiving proclamations. This is when we found out Benedict Arnold was trying to kill George Washington. And it's actually an amazing story. And he says, wow, the fingerprints of God in this are such to know that this was a God thing, because the way it came about, they should never have discovered the treason. It should never have been discovered. It was too well laid plan. So
for people who don't know that story, maybe you can tell the story.
Yeah, the story is really kind of interesting because Benedict Arnold had an ego, and his ego didn't get matched in the American Army because he thought he should have been promoted much faster. And he wasn't being recognized and wasn't being promoted. So he starts saying, well, the British will respect me. They'll honor me. I can get a promotion through them. And so he starts working with the British. He's in charge of West Point. And by the way, the biggest statue you find when you go to the battlefield is Saratoga, which is the first major victory in the American Revolution. Massive statue of Benedict Arnold, because he was the hero. He was an American general. He was courageous, but he just didn't think he got enough respect. And so because of that ego kind of thing, he turns to the British, and so he works with them. And because he's an American general that's so good, he has West Point. All of West Point is under his control. And so he makes this plan to give West Point to the British, and he's going to have them there at the time that George Washington arrives so they can kill Washington or capture Washington and everything right there. So what happens is a British officer, John Andre, is going back and forth with Benedict Arnold, and so they make the plans, they lay it out. Andre actually takes the plans, folds them up, puts them in the bottom of his shoe to hide in case anybody stops and they won't find it. And he gets into what is considered to be a safe part of New York. It is run by the British. All the loyalists are there. He's out of the American part of New York. He's back in the British part of New York. And he runs up on 3 guys and starts talking to them. And these guys, they're British guys. I can tell them what's going on. He starts sharing more information than he should have. Turned out they weren't British guys. They were 3 American militiamen who had just escaped from a British prison. And so here's 3 Americans who shouldn't even be in this area. They were prisoners. They got free. And now as Arnold starts becoming a little too open with them, they start getting a little curious and they start thinking, this doesn't smell right. And so they actually grab him and take him to an American post, which wasn't supposed to be in that area at all. So everything was improbable all the way through. They searched, didn't find anything, and they said, let's search again. And for some reason, checked the bottom of his shoe, found the papers. So everything was, it was just too many coincidences. That's what they saw. This is too providential, too much God here. And so that's why Hancock called for that time of Thanksgiving.